Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a snide, Charles Coulombe.
Snide? Snide?
Yeah.
What do you mean snide?
That's what you are. I'm just being accepting.
I am not snide. I'm a nice person, basically. And there's more.
What?
Mr. Smart Guy. I'll prove to you that I'm nice.
Okay.
Okay, I'll prove it. I watched the Wiggles today singing Fruit Salad. Now, if that doesn't epitomize nice, I don't know what does. Fruit salad, yummy, yummy.
I don't think that's fair to do that to the audience.
What? They know the fruit salad song, and now it's going to be going through their heads the way it's just started going through yours.
I mean, the expression curiosity killed the cat comes to mind with this one because...
What?
You're using people's curiosity to...
To do what? I'm helping them with their issues. I mean, look. Before the show, I introduced you to some really important elements of pop culture. You had never seen the Teletubbies opening before, with the little three-legged bunnies running around.
That's
because
true.
Their lucky feet have been harvested. And you had never seen actually live perform, well, not live, but taped of the man doing it, of Monster Mash.
That's right. I've heard the song. I never saw the actual taping of it.
And you got to see Surfing Bird again.
Again, yes. I knew that song, but I never knew the story of the song.
So what's the word?
The bird.
Bird is the word?
Our beautiful American culture in all its glory.
Indeed.
And I introduced Charles to Baby Shark.
Yes, I did see Baby Shark dance. Over 8 billion views, ladies and gentlemen. That's more people that actually live on the earth. Talk about clickbait. I mean, that's just amazing. Ladies and gents, I got to tell you, you call me snide. Listen, I live in a planet where the most popular bit of clickbait is the Baby Shark dance. And, of course, it ends with little kids smiling, thinking they're safe, and they're about to get yum-yummed. That's not very nice.
Well, it's the nature of life.
Yeah, well, don't tell the little kids that. They're about to get mauled and eaten by sharks. And not just baby shark, mama shark, papa shark, grandma shark, and grandpa shark. It's a whole family of feasting fish, having little Japanese children for yum-yums. I think it's racist.
You're very selective with where you show compassion. I mean, you didn't care at all about sawing off the Easter Bunny's leg for a lucky rabbit's foot.
It'll grow back. Everyone knows that. The Easter Bunny's foot always grows back. Every year it gets harvested and given to the luckiest little boy or girl in the world. And they keep it for the rest of their lives. And then the rabbit's foot grows back, and the Easter rabbit gets his foot harvested the following year. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that, Charles.
I'll bet you didn't know that a bunny can lay eggs once a year.
No, I didn't know that either, yeah.
Yesterday, there were bunnies all over this great land of ours and across the planet laying eggs. And they were colored eggs, too.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'll say. And wait, there's more. Chocolate bunnies.
I like chocolate bunnies, yeah.
Well, those are bunnies. You know, you think it's cruel lovingly harvesting the lucky feet of bunnies upon whom they then grow back. But you think nothing of eating bunnies who have been turned into chocolate. Happy little bunny hopping through the woods one day or across the meadow or wherever it's hopping. A witch waves its wand, turns it into chocolate, and then it gets shipped off to a store and then sold to someone like you who eats the thing. You think that's better than lovingly harvesting a bunny's foot that'll grow back?
I don't think they do that. They just use a 3D printer.
Old school. Now they use witches.
That's very old school. Wow, we're really...
This is Easter magic, ladies and gentlemen. Well, look. I can see that you're suffering over the holidays.
Yes.
Do you miss the Easter Bunny bringing the basket? Tell the truth.
I do. Who wouldn't?
I do. But who do you miss more, Santa, the Easter Bunny, or the Tooth Fairy?
Ooh. I miss Santa the most. I mean, you have to say Santa, right?
You don't have to. You could miss the boogeyman the most. All depends on the kid.
That is pretty weird. Who would say the boogeyman?
Well, I'm not. I don't want to say anything myself, but I kind of miss the old guy.
Whenever I hear boogeyman, you know who I think of? I think of I forgot what his name was, but it was on Nightmare Before Christmas. I think it's Big Boo. Is it the Big Boo?
I guess.
Yeah. I always think of him as the boogeyman now. I always picture that.
Well, yeah. But I have to say though, if you think about it, the child world, the world of childhood, was a very interesting place. You've got the Easter Bunny, Santa, the Tooth Fairy, and some people had the boogeyman, the Sandman to put them to sleep.
Oh, it's
Great Pumpkin.
I was wrong. Oogie Boogie.
Oogie Boogie. There you go.
Yeah.
But what about the other holidays? Why didn't we have? I mean, the Great Pumpkin was kind of invented for Halloween, but as you know, kids didn't really believe in the Great Pumpkin. How about Tommy Turkey?
Tommy Turkey. What's that all about?
Thanksgiving brings good little boys and girls turkey and stuffing.
I've never heard of that one.
No, I'm making it up. But the point I'm trying to make is that why aren't there more of these characters for other holidays? Frankie Firework.
Well, because those are like based on historical events, right?
Well, so Christmas and Easter.
But not national. I mean, Christmas and Easter are not like national historical events.
You mean secular historical events?
I mean historical events that specifically happen within the United States.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. Christmas and Easter are really the only two religious holidays that have a secular aspect to them in America.
Yeah.
Although Halloween should have probably a living jack-o'-lantern or something.
Yes.
I would love to be jack-o'-lantern, the Halloween being, the colleague of Santa and the Easter Bunny.
Okay.
All year long, I live in my workshop, which would be I don't know, where would it be? Where would jack-o'-lantern workshop be? Do you think?
Somewhere in New England.
Okay.
Right?
So we're there, Transylvania, maybe Scotland, but somewhere frightening. New England is pretty scary, especially if you're in a I don't know, city hall in Boston or somewhere. Very scary, filled with frightening people. All right, so he's got his workshop, and he makes jack-o'-lanterns, scarecrows. What works with him? Not elves, surely.
That's a great question. I have no idea.
We don't know who stuffs the Easter Bunny's Easter baskets either. See, there are a lot of questions that I think need answers. Inquiring minds want to know. I think there should be a congressional subcommittee.
That reminds me of Congress. explain this. I heard that that house in San Diego was voted by Congress to be the America's most haunted house or something.
I,
The
I I don't know about Congress, by the state assemblies. Certainly
or
it was
state
voted by
assembly.
California. Yeah, it's the most haunted house in California.
But like, how does that work? Like, you've got the government. Like,
No, they wrote a resolution. They wrote all kinds of resolutions. I mean, we had an official state witch of California, as Massachusetts did.
what's the name of the house, by the way?
I've been there with your brother, actually.
Yeah, I still have a picture where you guys took a picture and it's like a phantasm.
Yeah, it was very weird. It
To
was
me, it
very
looks like
weird.
an Indian's face, like in side profile or something. It's so unusual.
It was a weird. It began with a B, I think. What the hell was the name of it? I can tell you that we really enjoyed going to the Hotel Del, the Whaley House, not a B. It's the Whaley House. Begins with a
There
W.
you go.
Yeah, it's a strange place. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we didn't see or feel anything, but the photographs all turned out strange.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
The- So, well, I think we've pretty much milked the weird and the peculiar.
Really,
And
have
this
you
is
had
a
enough? Have you really had enough weird and peculiar, Charles? Usually, your tolerance is a lot higher than mine.
well, yeah, that's true. Actually, it is Easter week though, and I actually quite apart from we should mention quite apart from the weirdness factor that it is Easter is the greatest festival of the church year. And yes, we know, ladies and gentlemen, that we've been under lockdown for a year, and we know that a lot of us are having difficulties. Life is annoying, and we haven't been able to celebrate for a lot of us Easter week the way we'd like to, or Holy Week the way we'd like to. That's all true. But Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Hallelujah. Jesus Christ is risen today. It doesn't matter. As with Christmas, so with Easter, so with Pentecost. Regardless of what the external world does or doesn't do, these great mysteries of the faith endure. Christ was born, Christ is risen, the Holy Ghost came. And even popes and presidents can't take that away, even if they're senile and don't quite remember what any of it's about anyway. Either one, popes or presidents. If they're senile. I'm not saying either of them are senile. I'm saying if they were.
Gotcha. All right. No memes this week, so we're gonna go straight into the questions.
Okay.
First one is from Patrick. Was Theobald Wolfe Tone's United Irishmen associated with Freemasonry? They obviously championed the ideals of the French Revolution, but I do not know if that proves they were Masonic, and it may not even matter. More importantly, would I possibly be right in thinking that the two-faced Wolfe Tone's ability to get Irish Catholics to collaborate with his organization triggered their long descent into apostasy? Or would you lay more blame at the feet of later Irish Republican figures?
Well, I would say, I mean, there was certainly more than a touch of Masonry to the United Irishmen, as there was to the Fenians. In fact, the Fenians and the Orangemen, the Orange Order, were both Masonically based, and interestingly enough, had the same grips and countersigns. Although that's something their presumably mutually exclusive membership wouldn't have caught on to. But I think it owes a lot more to later Republicans. I mean, you even take the men of 16. Nobody could call Patrick Pearse a Mason or a secularist. Quite the contrary. Yeah, I certainly. The Irish situation is one of these things where you wish nobody had done anything.
Interesting. Right. Question from Andrew. What is the history of the Third Orders? What was their purpose, and which ones are still around today? I'm specifically interested in the Third Order of St. Francis of Assisi, as I have recently joined it.
Well, to answer your question, in one sense, early on, the Benedictines had lay assistants, lay brothers, oblates, and so forth, which is sort of kind of the origin of the practice. But the third orders, as we know them, really got going with the rise of the mendicant orders, like the Franciscans, the Dominicans, etc., in the 13th century, when the desire of laity to be closely identified with the work of a religious order that they really admired got really, really big. So that's where your Third Order Dominicans, TOP came in, Third Order Franciscans, and a lot of others. I couldn't tell you how many there are. There are so many third orders running around. I have no idea. They have a lot of them. But it's a good way for a layperson to identify himself or herself, because a lot of orders of nuns have them, with the work of a given order that they're fond of, which for state of life and whatever reasons they can't become a part of in any other way. This way, they're able to support the work of the order and enjoy the spiritual benefits of being associated with it. And usually they're buried in the habit of the order.
What does that mean?
It means that, let's say you become a Third Order Dominican, so your name becomes Vincent Franchini, TOP. But
okay,
you die. When you die, you'll be buried in the habit of a Dominican lay brother.
In the habit?
Yeah, the white robe and the black scapular and all that.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
Ah.
All right. How do they know to do that? That's interesting. I mean, because
Well, I mean, you put it in your will, obviously. If people aren't unconsciously members of third orders, if you become a member of a third order, it becomes a big part of your life. And usually there are like prayer meetings specifically for third order people. I mean, to give you an example, you know who the Oratorians are?
Yeah.
Well, although we don't have an oratory in San Diego, there is a chapter of the Little Oratory affiliated to the Brompton Oratory in London. And they all know who they are, and when they die, they'll be buried in cassocks.
Okay. It's just kind of strange because going through this with my dad, the mortuary just asks, for some clothes for him to be buried in, and you give him the clothes, and it happens.
If he'd been a member of a third order, he could have been buried in his habit.
But I mean, they never fitted. I mean, you don't get fitted for a habit, do you?
You don't really need to be. They're kind of loose. Also, don't forget, if you're going to be in the coffin, it's not like it matters how long it is.
Right. Okay.
You're not going to trip over it.
But also they must respond quickly. I mean, the whole process happens pretty quickly, so it's just surprising to me.
But I mean, stop and think about the Knights of Columbus. When a knight dies, if he's a active member of the council, everybody knows about it very quickly, and they put together a color guard.
I mean, that's like,
that's how third orders are.
Okay.
That's how third orders are. They know each other's members. They know the other members, and they respond pretty quickly.
Okay. Fascinating. All right. Charles, in your history of the question from Brian. Charles, in your history of the popes, you mentioned the Petite Eglise, the schismatic group that was excommunicated for refusing to accept the Concordat with Napoleon in 1801. I understand that their numbers gradually dwindled, especially after they no longer had ordained priests.
No.
What did they not... Why did they not go the route of the old Romans? Were they conservative in outlook and have held to the Latin Mass if they had priests?
Yes, yes, and yes. But the thing is that no bishops joined the Petite Eglise. And with no bishops, when the last priest died in 1832, that was it. But they still exist. Uh, they make spiritual communions. Some of them use non-Roman missals, old French Rite missals. There are very few left, of course, but they do have them. And the only sacraments they have are baptism and marriage. And they have catechizers who prepare the children for their first spiritual communion. Their Sunday gatherings, they read from the missal, and they make spiritual communions, kind of like everybody was doing in LA. When under the coronavirus, everybody was Petite Eglise.
Ooh. That makes sense.
And of course, your Petite Eglise too, if you'd like to go to St. Peter's and not partake in a concelebrated mass. You're Petite Eglise now. Go on. I'm here to help.
It's derogatory or mocking in an indirect way. I think there's a word for that.
Snide.
That's the word.
Yeah, word is the bird. Word. Word is the bird. Word. Word is the bird. No?
No. All right, what is the history of the little offices, especially that of Our Lady? Who prayed it? I have also seen there is the little office of St. Francis and little office of the Passion, written by that same saint. How many little offices are there, and why don't we hear about them too much?
I don't know how many there are. The oldest is the little office of the Blessed Virgin Mary, where they parallel the divine office in hours and so on, but they're shorter, and they're specific toward the object of their devotion. The little office of Our Lady is very old, and some orders say it alongside the liturgy of the hours, especially certain nuns' orders, but not exclusively. And some lay people say it as a regular devotion, the little office of Our Lady. And it extends and adds to the daily office, and so like it sanctifies the hours of the day and relates them specifically to Our Lady. And the same is true of the others, the Passion, St. Francis, etc. They all have a particular devotional element in mind.
Why don't we hear about them anymore, Charles?
Because after Vatican II, there were a lot of clerical persons who didn't like popular devotions. So they would get rid of things like novenas. There used to be very public novenas in churches. And they would get rid of that. They got rid of adoration and benediction. And basically, everything was supposed to be just the communal meal that they called the Lord's Supper. And that was just supposed to be it. So basically, they were getting away from both the Eucharistic element of the Mass, the sacrificial element, and they were getting away from popular devotions as well, and the public celebration of the Liturgy of the Hours, which, to be fair, in most places that had them, it was pretty much the solemn vespers on Sunday evenings or afternoons. They got rid of all that. And they also got rid of high altars and altar rails and statues. So just be the table of sacrifice around which the people of God would gather for the communal meal and worship of self.
That closing expression was just priceless.
Well, I
feel like I've seen you on that character on television.
I'm sure you have. You probably saw him yapping from the pulpit as well. If you want to know what Father Di Maria was like when he was young.
Ugh.
You remember him.
Yes, I do. I was thinking about him yesterday.
God rest him.
Yeah, God rest him. He radicalized me.
He was an amazing guy. I remember his getting up in the pulpit and saying the only reason he stayed in the priesthood was because they paid for his medical bills. I thought, now that's inspiring. That's inspiration, to the tune of That's Entertainment. When a priest tells you that he's a beast, or you know that he's filling with woe, that's inspiration.
Wonderful, Charles.
You like that?
You're really into it today.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? It's the Easter season. Lent is over. Holy Week is over. It's time to rejoice.
Rejoice and be glad.
Yes, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. That's Scripture.
Right. A bunch of questions from Donald.
Hello, Donald.
In observing...
This isn't from the Donald, is it?
No, it's not the Donald.
All right.
In observing conversations on social media, I have noticed a rise in fallen away Catholics and mainline Protestants embracing an amalgam of Gnosticism, claiming Jesus' true teachings have been hidden for centuries, and Neo-Stoicism. To what do you attribute this latest spiritual trend?
Well, two things. One, a sense of guilt. They've got to justify having left the churches of their upbringing. But also, more particularly and more importantly, the failure of the clergy, the Catholic clergy, I can't speak for the Protestants, to adequately teach the Catholic faith. It's very simple. That's been our problem for decades. I just sang a song about it. That's inspiration.
Yeah.
To know that you really don't need to believe what is there in the creed. That's inspiration.
It's
priests.
It seems like Gnosticism is the easy way out with the Protestant argument. I don't know how there's not more people relying on this sort of lazy Gnostic argument, where Jesus' true teachings have been hidden for centuries.
Sorry, we can't know what they are. Or Pastor Bob has revealed them.
That's sad.
Well, you don't remember the late, great Reverend, oh heavens, I can't believe I've forgotten his name, Gene Scott.
I know Gene Scott. You and my brother have stories of his escapades.
He was wonderful.
And I've seen his wife carry on the legacy.
Yes, Hot Scott. He was Doc Scott. She was Hot Scott.
Yeah.
She looked like his daughter.
Yes.
She was like a temple attendant at one point.
Okay.
Anyway, the point is, the man is gone. He died. But not before sending his mignonettes to dance in front of your brother and me at the Derby.
That's the story I heard.
It's a true story. He didn't make it up. And there was no music either, which made it all the weirder. Well,
I don't know, man. That's weird. You got a Protestant pastor just masquerading around with a bunch of chicks and then trying to impress my brother and Charles and says, okay, chicks, dance for...
We were impressed.
It's just so weird.
It was a very weird moment.
And
it
shameless. It's like, well, yeah, I'm Dr. Gene Scott. I don't care. Don't dance for them.
He didn't care at all. He ministered to us. Those chicks were acting as ministering sisters. And the funny thing about it, that story has its roots in the remote past. Because my late and very much lamented pal, Matt Hale, he and I, when after we got out of NMMI, but he was going to USC and I was going to Cal State Northridge, we used to get a little bit, well,
Yeah.
to watch Dr. Scott on TV, which was really the best way to do it. I mean, watching him sober is amusing, but it's better when you're a little bit out of this world. So at that time, he was having his big fight with the FCC over, over the satellite, which they wouldn't allow him on. So he needed to get money to buy a satellite or satellite time, whatever it was. So he said he needed 100 Gideons to give him $1,000 apiece to stand up, and so on and so forth. And if you pledged $1,000, he would send you his autobiography, which he'd written, called, I think, something like A Lonely Wine Press at Megiddo's something or other. I forget what the something or other was, but it was A Lonely Wine Press at Megiddo's X. I can never remember the last word. So we had a good deal to drink, and Matt, under an assumed name, pledged $1,000. Well, he never made good on the pledge. We got the book, so I read it. I read A Lonely Wine Press at Megiddo's What's It. So fade in, fade out. Your brother, John Schmerak, and I are at the fabulous Derby in Arcadia having dinner. I look over, and there's Dr. Jean with these two chicks from Budget Rent-A-Trollop and a Samoan bodyguard. True story. So I looked at your brother and John. I said, why, that's Dr. Jean. Oh, I should mention that Matt and I had actually gone to see him at his service in Glendale.
Okay.
But by the time of our story, it was now invitation only if you wanted to get in. So I walked up to the doc, and the Samoan bodyguard tried to stop me, but the doc called me toward him. And I said, well, it's a pleasure to see you again, Dr. Scott. I read your book, A Lonely Wine Press at Megiddo's, and then he supplied the last word. Well, he lit up like a Christmas tree because I suppose he presumed I was one of them Gideons. So he wrote out an invitation that would have gotten me into the worship service. Then we had a nice chat, and then I went back. Three of us were sitting there. Next thing I know, the two girls come over and start dancing in front of us. But there's no music, so they're like doing this number. And we're sitting there, and poor John, who had never been to Los Angeles before, he's there with his mouth open. Like. So they eventually go back, and John says, does this sort of thing happen a lot around here? And of course, your brother and I were like, oh, yeah, all the time. It's
Welcome
very,
to LA.
very typical. It happens all the time. This random dancing chicks come up. What are you going to do? It's LA.
Yeah, this happens every day.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. Why? You find this abnormal? So he was really taken aback. I don't think he ever came back. He was kind of traumatized. It was a very strange thing, Dr. Scott's dancing chicks. It was very peculiar. I still think of it to this day. Golly. So, but you thought your brother made that up, didn't you?
No, I didn't at all, actually. No.
No, it was quite true. And it just, ladies and gentlemen, after many years of rambling around as a boy and a youth and a man in LA, a phrase would come to mind: when the night turns surreal. It didn't happen all that often, but now and then the night would turn surreal. Something like that would happen, and after that, anything that goes on in the evening, it's just weird. Totally weird. And all you can do is get through the night and go home and pass out and, hope that daybreak is a little saner. But I will never forget Dr. Scott's dancing chicks. It wasn't, I mean, their movements weren't particularly lascivious. I suppose they were in a sense. But the fact that there was no music is what made it so bizarre. It reminded me of the scene in Blue Velvet, where you've got these sort of dumpy chicks dancing for no apparent reason in Dean Stockwell's apartment. And you're like, what's that about? Very similar feeling.
All right. I'm still laughing at, and John Zmirak never came back to L.A. again.
No, I think he was traumatized. He'd had enough at that point. He said, "Okay, well, I think the East Coast is good enough for me. You guys, whatever it is you're into here, you just keep it."
I hope that's
See
the
that?
case. I hope that's the case. I hope that's his like impression of L.A. Like, yep, this is what happens.
That's what happens. Random chicks come dancing. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I think he was definitely scared.
Yeah.
Scared sane.
All right. Has there ever been a cultus of official cause for the beatification of Dante Alighieri?
That's a good question. The answer is I don't think so. I could be wrong, and I invite those to tell me. There have been one or two. I think Benedict XV, in particular, for the anniversary of Dante, wrote an encyclical about it. But I don't think they'll ever beatify him or canonize him because he was a Ghibelline, and popes are notoriously unhappy with pro-imperial people.
What's a Ghibelline again?
Supporter of the emperor, as opposed to the Guelph, who was a supporter of the popes during the 12, 13, 1400 struggles in Italy and Germany between the popes and the emperors.
Okay. Is the American mortgage industry in conflict with the Catholic teaching on usury? Have there ever been any Catholic banking institutions who offered mortgages akin to the Islamic banking institutions, which provide non-usurious financing to prospective Muslim home buyers?
Well, for the first question, a good argument could be made, I suppose, that they are in conflict. I'm not the best person to make that argument in terms of what I know or don't know, but it certainly is a question worth examining. To answer the second question, oh yeah, the Mons Pietatis, the Mountains of Piety, that operated throughout Catholic Europe and Latin America for that very purpose.
So there are now Islamic banking institutions that provide non-usurious financing?
That is true.
How does that work?
I don't know, but I know it's the case.
So that means no interest? A no-interest loan?
A very low interest, I think, basically enough to operate, but no more.
I mean, it's got to be higher than inflation. Otherwise, it's simply not profitable, right?
I don't know how it works. I'd be lying if I told you I did.
Okay, wow. All right, Donald's final question. Do you have any suggestions about how to start a chapter of the Italian Catholic Federation? From what I can find, they are only located in California.
Okay, find the oldest Italians you know. Oh, can we not say things like that?
I actually looked up after we kind of were talking about Italian Catholic Federation. It says on their website, you basically can just start it up. I mean, you contact them and they're going to give you some support.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to do your pitch, right? You hopefully the support network that they lend you helps you with the priest, and then you do your sales pitch, I guess, at Mass, and you see if you can wrangle up enough people to make it a thing. And that's it. But the resources are definitely on the website. It'll tell you in terms of how to start. It's interesting though. It's only in California. It's unusual, right?
Yeah, I mean they have other organizations like the Sons of Italy and stuff like that, but
I guess it makes sense because they have to leapfrog. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're in New York, they can't send you their people. You know, if they're only in California, you know, it's got to spread like that. That's interesting. Um. All right. A question from new patron named Vincent. Nice
Hello,
name.
Vincent. You
Yes.
like that name? Do you like Vincent
That's
as a name?
that's a fine name.
How do you like Vincent de Paul?
That's a good name.
Vincent de Saragossa.
Good name.
Um,
Go
Vinny
on.
Malicati.
How come you skip Vincent Ferrer? I'm named after Vincent Ferrer.
All right, Vincent Ferrer. How's that?
Excellent. All right.
Vinny Malicati.
Good.
Do you like Vinny Malicati?
Yeah.
Your big rival?
Is he my rival?
Well, no, he's a junior man in the Manicati outfit, but still.
All right.
You know he's a made man now.
Oh, good for him. We'll see how it goes. Historically,
Just thought I'd point it out. You used to they used to say that he was for you what Oswald was for me.
don't start, Charles.
Days,
Don't start. Keep
back
that.
in your salad days. You don't want me to mention anything about the Nativity high school dance? No?
No, I don't. Put that away, Charles.
Okay. You don't want me to say anything about what happened afterwards?
You're being disrespectful.
What? It's a walk down memory lane, or a stagger in this case. All right, we'll forget about the Nativity high school dance. Not in other words. See this? Look. You're always saying loose lips sink ships. Look here. Not another word about it.
Good. All right. Vincent says, historically, how important was the foundation of new monasteries to Christianize the many pagan societies in Europe? In some places like Sweden, I think it would not have been possible without them. Will monasteries be instrumental for re-Christianizing the pagan society we live in today? What's your answer, Charles? What's the matter with you?
Nothing. I was just thinking of a certain night in May that I'm not going to talk about.
Good. So,
anyway, the suffice it to say that yes, the monastery is absolutely essential, and I think they will be essential again. I mean, you look at the work of places like Clear Creek in Oklahoma, Silver Spring, I think it is, in Ireland, Fongombo in France, and a lot of other places, and not just Benedictine monasteries, a lot of other orders. You look at the work of the Norbertines in keeping the faith alive in Southern California, despite the best efforts of the bishops, of the local bishops, or the oratories in different places. So, yeah, I think that I think they've always had a huge part to play in evangelization. I think they always will. It's just the nature of the beast. You need a place where, on the one hand, people can withdraw to put themselves together spiritually, but on the other, act as support bases for people who are contending with the world.
Yeah. People are so involved with the laity, and, there's so many Catholic podcasts involving the laity. It's easy to forget about what's happening behind the scenes with all these abbeys and monasteries, and I 100% believe that this is where the faith will be reinvigorated.
And I mean, there are a lot of revivals within old orders and foundations of new orders, which, despite the wrecking of the Franciscans, the Immaculate, they can't get all of them.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of good things happening. It's just that they're not in the news. They're not happening. They're not happening in your cathedral. Usually, sometimes, not usually. They're certainly not happening in the Holy See. But they are happening, because the thing to bear in mind about the Church is that, despite everything, the Church is not the mystical body of the Pope, and it's not the mystical body of the hierarchy. It is the mystical body of Christ, and all of us, including Pope and hierarchy, even when they're wicked, we all play a role, even if we're not conscious of it. You know, an order that survives abuse by a bad prelate or several of them is an order that's being tested.
Yeah.
And in that, the bad clerics, the bad hierarch, whatever it might be, are playing a role, although not necessarily a role that will do them any good. It might benefit the people they're abusing, but it won't do them any good in the long run.
Yeah. Speaking of monasteries, one update for everyone in Southern California. I recently went to St. Michael's Abbey in Silverado a couple weeks ago. I went for confession, and they moved. I didn't know it happened. I went and I went to their old spot and says, "Oh, we're closed. We're moved." And that $100 million new facility that they're building, it's interesting because it's 10 minutes deeper into the wilderness, and it's so huge. It's still kind of under construction. I think it's probably going to be a year or a couple months yet. But this thing it's $100 million, and it is gorgeous and unbelievable. But what I love the most about it is that it's old school California mission. Because it's so substantial and so huge, and it's in the middle of nowhere, that I have to believe it's going to create a community around it. Like, there's going to be development around the church.
Well, in all likelihood. Of course, there was a song that was composed about that town.
The Silverado? Okay.
Silverado, why don't you come to your senses? No?
Haven't heard of that one.
Oh, I see.
All right. Question from Vendée Radio.
All right.
Do you think that the papal orders have been diluted by the investiture of pagans and heretics?
He so often gives me questions that aren't questions at all. I mean, they're like, if someone swallows poison, will it do him harm? I don't know what to say to that. Of course.
So what's going on here exactly? I mean, so they're giving papal orders to pagans and heretics, like who? Anybody notable?
Well, they've always given some of the papal orders to non-Catholic heads of state and government. Like, for instance, what's his name? Leo XIII gave Bismarck the Order of Christ. So, it's not like there isn't a precedent for it. But it's much more common today than it was. One thing you have to bear in mind, too, unfortunately, is that the papal orders do not have, unlike the British orders of knighthood, they do not have like a central chancery or even a what do you call it? Even a corporate existence per se. They're really just medals. There's not like a chapter of the Order of St. Sylvester, for instance. Now, mind you, you do have in certain countries, you have associations of papal knights, which include Gregory, Sylvester, and all the rest. But that's just an ad hoc kind of thing. It's not like the order has a corporate existence. And most of the knighthoods are given out at the behest of the local bishop. The sad truth of the matter is that, how do I put this nicely? The sad truth is that the local bishop primarily decides, and local bishops very often have no standards. In fact, it was the local bishop, Roger Cardinal Mahoney, who violated the statutes of the Order of St. Gregory by appointing females to it. I mean, he violated the statutes, and Rome went along with it because he was rich and he gave Rome a lot of money.
Okay, so basically it's a meaningless medal.
I wouldn't say meaningless, but I would say it doesn't mean what it did. I mean, see, the problem you have in all of these things is that the chivalric element of it is simply not taken seriously enough, I think, by churchmen.
Would you like the order to be more corporate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I were given my druthers, the orders of knighthood would, again, as they did under St. Pius X, and I suppose before, I don't know when they stopped doing it, but there would be a central chancery of the orders of knighthood at the Vatican, the way there is in London, the way the King of Spain has the Council of Four Orders. There would be in those cities with enough of them to matter, there would be a designated chapel, either for the papal orders as a group or, I mean, St. Gregory is the most common in the United States. Other countries, St. Sylvester. It varies, but there would be, like the Order of Malta, like the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, there would be a corporate structure for these things, and it would be answerable to Rome. You see.
Yeah.
And appointments that were made by bishops would be, I mean, I wouldn't take bishops out of the process entirely, simply because they're in a better position to know who the active laymen are on the local level. But I would definitely want to have a chancery of knighthood in the Holy See to vet everybody who comes to it. I mean, Mahoney had Rupert Murdoch made a papal knight, which was complained to me about by John Paul II's English language secretary. Now, they would never have thought of saying no, but they didn't like giving it to Rupert Murdoch, with good reason. I mean, he dumped his wife less than a year later, so he showed what a good recipient of the knighthood he was. But there should be a central office that would examine an appointment like that and say, I don't think so, and recommend to the Holy Father. So in other words, if I had my druthers, you're Bishop Franchini of Los Angeles, and you recommend, oh gosh, I don't know, Donald T. Sterling as a papal knight. Well, this order comes to Rome. They don't know who Donald Sterling is. So somebody at the chancery, the central chancery, goes through it and says, I don't think this is really a wise idea. I mean, Cardinal Franchini means well, I'm sure, but no. And then the Holy Father would nix it. And then, you would, and despite the fact that he had given literally millions of dollars to the church, you wouldn't get his order of St. Gregory.
I see.
You're laughing at the Chevalier Sterling.
I'm laughing that you so aptly put Donald Sterling into your example.
Well, they're no worse than Rupert Murdoch.
Because he would be the ultimate practitioner of simony.
Yeah, without a doubt.
He would absolutely.
And he would be the kind of man, I think, if Donald Sterling had wanted a papal knighthood, I have no doubt Cardinal Mahoney would have given it to him. In an act of fraternal and ecumenical charity.
Of course.
What?
Of course, no.
What other reason could there possibly be? Gotcha there, smart guy. You don't have a comeback.
No.
Yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha. Donald T. Sterling would be made a Knight of St. Gregory purely out of his goodness.
All right. Question from Nicholas.
Nicholas, we're here for you.
Hello, gentlemen. I am quite fond of the history of Rhodesia and their
Ah,
struggle.
ah.
I have read about the Bush War, and I have read about our nation's position towards Rhodesia and the European colonies as a whole, and I'm certainly not fond of how our government dealt with them.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, with the permission of Mr. Vincent the Bookish Troopy Franchini, as to what Charles thinks of Rhodesia, especially since he lived during the time of the Bush War and it is not a modern academic who holds a very predictable and simple opinion on the matter.
What an amazing, lovely thing to say. I don't have the typical academic's opinion on the matter, that's for sure. All right, Rhodesia. Okay. Cecil Rhodes.
Can you start with the predictable and simple opinion that people hold?
Racism.
All right, got it.
Racism. The reality was somewhat different. The South Africans, the Afrikaners with the idea of apartheid, that really was racism. The idea to keep the races apart and to keep the blacks in their place forever. That was the apartheid state of South Africa. But Rhodesia was very different. Firstly, originally the two colonies of northern and southern Rhodesia, now called Zambia and Zimbabwe, were settled partly under the aegis of Cecil Rhodes and his British South African Company. Hence the name is Rhodesia. But white settlers, European settlers, came to southern Rhodesia in large numbers. They didn't really come to northern Rhodesia very much. And those who did primarily came for mining. But southern Rhodesia got a large number of settlers. The only two other, apart from South Africa, the other two places in Africa that had comparable numbers of European settlers, well, Angola and Mozambique did, for Portuguese. Kenya had a lot of British, especially in the so-called White Hills. And then Algeria had a lot, and Tunisia had a lot, and Morocco, all right, those three, had a lot of French settlers. And Libya had a large number of Italians, but I suppose if you leave out North Africa, the major areas of European settlement were South Africa, southern Rhodesia, Angola, and Mozambique, primarily for climatic reasons. There were a number of Belgians that settled in the Belgian Congo, particularly mining and things like that. Yeah, anyway, so what happened was that in both Kenya and southern Rhodesia, the European colonists were really in charge. There were self-governing colonies, but the Europeans ran themselves, and the blacks had a decidedly subordinate role. Now, in Rhodesia, Kenya I don't know about, and eventually they were given over to black majority rule after the Mau Mau Rebellion. In Rhodesia, it was a different story. There were more settlers than in Kenya. They were a larger proportion of the population. And they had, their restrictions were not racial per se. They were based on income and literacy in terms of voting restrictions. Now, those restrictions effectively kept most Africans from voting because most of them were not literate and they didn't have any property to speak of. But the idea was that eventually they would, and that slowly but surely they would be integrated into national life. That was the idea. This was quite a different idea to what was going on in South Africa with the establishment of the apartheid state, where non-white voters, coloreds and Asians, could already vote in the Cape and Natal, and they were deprived of that right as the apartheid state was put together after 1948. Well, the British wanted to come to some sort of conclusion to get out of Africa because it cost, and they were pretty much, after World War II, they really were not keen continuing to pay. Because you got to remember that they got things out of the colonies initially, but they were also stuck paying for everything from medicine to railroads to roads to electricity and so on. And this was a drain on the British economy. How much better to give these countries independence and then trade with them without having to pay for their upkeep. So, Northern and Southern Rhodesia and the colony of Nyasaland in 1958 were merged to form the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland, which it was hoped would eventually emerge as a united dominion like Canada, self-sufficient and allowing the British to get out of Dodge. Didn't work that way because the white settlers in southern Rhodesia did not get along with the largely black electorates in northern Rhodesia and Malawi, in Nyasaland. Nyasaland and the Federation broke up. Nyasaland and Zambia were given independence in 1963. So the British insisted that they would only give independence to southern Rhodesia if they allowed majority rule. And this the Rhodesian government was not prepared to do. They were a self-governing colony, you see. So, in 1965, negotiations broke down. And Ian Smith, who was the then very popular Prime Minister of Rhodesia, elected by the white European settlers. And you got to bear in mind that under their aegis, Rhodesia bloomed. It was the breadbasket of Africa. So, what happens? Smith cannot get the British to agree to allow Rhodesia to become independent under its existing constitution. So he does what is called the Unilateral Declaration of Independence, UDI, in 65. Well, this causes several problems. One, they declare independence as a dominion, as a Commonwealth realm, not as a republic. But the governor, Sir Humphrey Gibbs, who's a Rhodesian himself, is sitting there in Government House as the representative of the Queen. He refuses to acknowledge their independence. So they refuse to acknowledge him as the representative of the Queen. And so they appoint an officer administering the government, Clifford DuPont. And they cut off electricity and so on to Government House, and they won't pay for the servants there anymore. So Sir Humphrey ends up spending the next 5 years in Government House with no electricity, no utilities, and a small staff that won't leave him. Kind of an exciting story and touching in its way. In the meantime, Rhodesia is recognized by no other country. Initially, Harold Wilson wanted to invade Rhodesia and bring it back to submission. They say that it was the Queen who dissuaded him from this by saying that the British armed forces, because they just fought with Rhodesians alongside them in Korea and Korea and World War II, that the army he would be hard put to order the army against Rhodesia. So, along they went. 5 years later, they declared themselves to be a republic, the Republic of Rhodesia. Not recognized by any country, but with a major mineral, chrome. And they were one of 2 sources for chromium in the entire world, the other being in Russia. So to some degree, the entire free world was dependent upon Rhodesian chromium. And they were able to sell this through Mozambique and Angola, despite the pressure against them. However, in 1974, there was a coup d'etat in Portugal, and the Portuguese have been fighting their guerrillas, and so we're basically supporting Rhodesia and South Africa. Change in government, Mozambique becomes independent and starts assisting the rebels. And then The rebels acquire surface-to-air missiles and begin shooting down airliners. And the guerrillas, I have to tell you, were not pleasant people. They would go into villages and do really awful things to supporters of the government. So in the end, of having both the British, the Americans, and the Soviets against them at once, the Rhodesians finally gave up the struggle. And in 1979, a deal was made whereby they became a British colony again for a short period, southern Rhodesia. There was a plebiscite which gave the rebel leader, Robert Mugabe, the presidency. He won the election. And then, over the years, seized European-owned industry and agriculture, and the Zimbabwean economy collapsed. And it became the basket case it is now. And most of the white Rhodesians emigrated elsewhere. They had a culture, they had a country. They bitterly resented, a lot of them, the American intervention against them, because a lot of them believed that they were emulating America's example, revolting against the crown, declaring independence. So they felt that the Americans were extremely hypocritical. That's hard to believe, of course, because we're incapable of hypocrisy.
That's right.
You know why?
Because you have to have standards? I don't know.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
You got it. You don't have standards, you can't have hypocrisy, so we're free of it.
Okay. Final question today is from Anthony.
All right.
Read an article from BBC written in 2015 that said, quote, "The new rules also allow members of the royal family to marry a Roman Catholic and become king or queen. However, a Roman Catholic royal still cannot become the monarch." End quote. Can Charles please elaborate on this quote? If someone in the succession to the British throne converted to Catholicism, would they be removed from the line of succession? What if a British monarch converted to Catholicism while on the throne?
Well, now, firstly, Anthony works at a restaurant, saving his money for someday.
This can't be a Billy Joel song. Wait, what
Yeah,
is this?
It is. Anthony works at a restaurant, saving his money for someday.
Is this moving out again?
Yeah.
All right.
We didn't think we were going to get through without a moving out reference.
I guess.
What's wrong with a house in Hackensack? What have you got against Jersey? That's what I want to know.
Nobody likes Jersey. Not even Jersey people.
That's beside the point. That's beside the point. I mean, the Jersey, the Garden State, proud and free.
Yeah, California, the Golden State.
Proud and free. Well, when I got to tell you, when your uncle moved the outfit out to California, I mean, not the outfit. I hate those loaded terms that people use. I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, when the family moved out to Southern California, years later, I asked him, I said, why if you're getting across the Hudson, why go so far? Why not just stay in Jersey? And he said exactly what you said. Nobody likes Jersey. Why would I go to Jersey? That's crazy. I think the Frankinis just don't like Jersey.
Well, if you like it so much, why don't you go live there?
Well, okay. I have a very special relationship with New Jersey.
Okay.
New Jersey is a place where I feel very special about New Jersey.
All right.
I think New Jersey is a place where I think the people who feel that they need to create for themselves a destiny of some kind or other, in one sense or another, could in fact look at Jersey and feel that way.
Yeah. Go on.
Well, I'm just saying that if you think of Jersey in one sense or another, there is a way in which you can see that Jersey, as Jersey, qua Jersey, is really the sort of place that people who would enjoy living in New Jersey would enjoy living in.
Okay, what about you?
About me. I find Jersey to be an unusual place and very unlike so many other places that I've been.
But you said it was great.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful.
So why don't you want to live there?
Well, it isn't a question of wanting. No. Bless my buckles. It's not a question of wanting or even of not wanting.
Okay.
It's just that the opportunity to live in Jersey, to play in Jersey, to be the kind of person that Jersey has a right to expect to move there has never yet come my way. I just don't have, I think, what it takes to be a loyal son of the Garden State, a real Jersey blue. I don't think I have it. I just don't think I have it in me. It's all me. It's not Jersey.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, Charles.
Well, I mean, stop. Think of Hoboken. Think of Weehawken. Who wouldn't want to live in those places? Bergen County, Bayonne, Perth Amboy. Wonderful places all.
Good.
The Paramus Mall.
All right. Believe it or not, the question we received was not about Jersey, but about the royal family. Would you care to...
There's a lot of difference between New Jersey and the royal family.
Yeah.
Although New Jersey was originally granted to a member of the royal family, the Duke of York, who in turn gave it over to two friends of his, one of whom had been governor of the island of Jersey, hence the name New Jersey. See? So yeah, I haven't strayed as far as you're trying to imply. You wanted to give our watchers and listeners the impression that I was somehow trying to drown this question in a pile of Jersey trivia.
Yes.
Well, that's not true. I mean, it's like comparing.
Didn't you do that, though?
Princess May. What's that?
Didn't you do that, though?
No, not at all. No. Wash my whiskers, no. In fact, Princess Megan and the Jersey Devil do bear a great resemblance to each other in some ways, if you squint a little bit.
Okay.
You could imagine, for instance, couldn't you imagine the Sussexes guest starring on Jersey Shore if it were revived?
No.
Oh, come on. You could see them hanging out with Snooki and the Situation.
Well, you know what? I actually can't answer that honestly, because I don't even know what Jersey Shore is about, other than some...
Yes? Yes? What word are we going to use?
I can't...
What are we going to use?
You know what words I use. I don't want to do that again.
Why don't you want to use the word?
I don't want to do that. Anyhow, I think we should be respectful to Anthony and answer his question.
All right, fine. But just think of Princess Megan and Snooki as BFFs.
Okay. Great.
Catch or see them? Side by side, walking along the gosh, what do they call those things? I've forgotten
Boardwalk?
my words. Yes, thank you. The boardwalk? Snooki and Princess Megan.
Sorry, I had to
look up Snooki.
Look up Snooki. I see Snooki now, and I'm done looking at Snooki. Okay.
But couldn't you see her hanging out with Princess Megan?
Yes.
See? You thought I was just being unkind. I wasn't. Prince Harry and the Situation could be buds. Oh, now you gotta look up the Situation.
No,
so
I'm not looking at that. I just darn.
What?
I was looking up her ethnicity. All
Who,
right.
Snooki?
You know,
Oh, I can tell you that. If you want, I can tell you her
don't
ethnicity.
say it. All right. Anyhow.
She's not Slovak. She's not Magyar. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm
Very
not telling you
good,
what she
Joe.
is. I'm just saying what she isn't.
Okay. Okay, Charles, can we just move forward? Can we make progress? Can we get out of this hole that we've
All
dug
right.
ourselves?
I don't mind.
All right.
As the sun sets in the west and we wave goodbye to the Jersey Shore, and we come back to Anthony's original question, asked before he started working in that restaurant, Mama Leone's. All right, Anthony, here's the scoop. Snooki is not a member of the royal family, though she is Catholic. All right, to answer your question, ever since the so-called Glorious Revolution of 1688, when Parliament stole the right to decide who could succeed, they decreed that no member of the royal family could be in line for the throne if he were a Catholic or married to a Catholic. So that meant that members of the royal family who converted lost their place in the succession. So who did that include? Well, in recent times, the Duke of Kent, who was the brother of George V, his son, the Queen's first cousin, also called the Duke of Kent, strangely enough, his wife converted to Catholicism, so he could not become king. One of his sons, his oldest son, married a Catholic, couldn't become king. His brother, Prince Michael of Kent, married a Catholic, can't become king. And his younger son, Lord Nicholas Windsor, became a Catholic and married a Catholic. So they're all out of the line of succession under the old rules. Under the new rules, they're all back in, except for Lord Nicholas Windsor, because he himself is Catholic. So what that means is that under the altered rules, if a member of the royal family is in line of succession, marries a Catholic, does not lose their position. But if the children become Catholic or raised Catholic, they're. So, for instance, let's say that Prince George, Prince William's son, marries a Catholic girl in 20 years. Catholic royalty. I mean, there was a lot of talk, for instance, about Prince Charles back in the day before he had Princess, what's her name, forced on him, Diana.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk linking him with a Luxembourg princess, Maria Strede. And of course, in 2020 hindsight, that probably would have been a very good match because she had a lot of his interests, intellectual and so forth, that Princess Diana did not. And of course, being a royal herself, not a noblewoman, but a royal, as a member of the Luxembourg family, she knew what was expected and what life was going to be like. So, in all likelihood, to the degree that you can predict these things, which is always, who knows, but to the degree that you can, she probably would have been a better match for him. But that whole thing collapsed because she wouldn't convert to Anglicanism. And it was funny because at the time, of all people, the London Times said that this would have been a great step forward, especially if Prince Charles himself converted, because you'd have a Catholic as head of the Anglican Church of England and the Presbyterian Church of Scotland. Very ecumenical, said the London Times. Well, as things stand now, if Prince George married a Catholic, he could become king. But any of his children who converted or who were raised that way could not. And if he converts, he can't. That brings us to the apropos question, what if a sitting monarch converts? That is difficult. That would cause a constitutional crisis, like Edward VIII, like James II, that caliber. And a lot would depend on who was around, who was prime minister, what Parliament was like, what the king was like, and how far he was willing to go to the mattresses on the issue. So, it would be a very difficult setup. I mean, everyone was severely divided over Edward VIII. George VII, or George VIII, if Prince Charles takes the name George VII, his converting to Catholicism, a lot would depend upon a lot of things. How popular he was at the time. I mean, if he, 5 years into his reign, if he was extremely popular, and he said, "I want to become Catholic," he would be in a position to tell his politicians, "Guess what?" So it's hard to say what would result, but it would be a constitutional crisis. It would not be easy, regardless of anything else. And of course, if Snooki wanted to become queen, that would be very, very difficult.
Why?
Or if the situation wanted to marry a princess, he wouldn't be in the line of succession anyway, but still, it would be strange.
Why?
What, the situation, marrying a princess?
Yeah.
I think they've had bad experiences with royals marrying TV personalities who aren't real people.
Okay, fair enough.
I do prefer Snooki's hairdo to Princess Meghan's.
Yeah.
You seem very annoyed by the Jersey Shore
Okay,
people.
by the way, she was adopted by Italian parents. She only has an Italian name, and she took a DNA test and lots of different things genetically. Didn't mention Italian.
Stop.
So she's not Italian. She's not Italian.
Who brought up the I word?
I did.
I didn't do that.
I know, but that's okay. Because I had to set the record straight, and now it's set.
What? That she's Italian?
She's not Italian.
She's not. What is she? What a loss to Italy.
Why am I reading the ethnicity of this person on podcast? I don't know why.
Because
I don't know how we got here.
Issue.
Let's see here. She was born in Chile. She was adopted when she was 6 months old and raised by Italian-American parents, Andy and Helen Polizzi. Snooki has taken 2 DNA tests to determine the genetic background. In 2014, the first DNA test stated her genetic background is Romani, Iberian, South Asian, East Asian, Middle Eastern, and Jewish, with roots in northwestern Croatia, Macedonia, Slovakia, Russia, and Spain. Wow. She was surprised to learn that while born in Chile, she is not genetically Chilean. How do you like that?
Well, that's amazing.
Well, let's see. 5 years later, in January 2019, she took another DNA test, this time with
she's Swedish
23andMe, which stated that she was 60% native Chilean and 31% European, mostly Iberian with distant British and Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry. There you go. All you wanted to know about her ancestry and more.
I like the fact she's part Slovak.
Yeah, you would. You would.
I'm just saying. Well, that's interesting. So Snooki is an Italian. Boy, as I say, a great loss to Mother Italy. You know what? All the flags of the Sons of Italy halls around the East Coast will be at half-mast because of a loss of one of the major members of the community. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're all somewhat beggared tonight, all of us bereaved. Snooki's loss to our community is a loss that we all feel very strongly. Here was a woman who did her best to demonstrate. What? You look like you're being pained over Snooki's ethnicity.
Yes.
You shouldn't.
I'm being raked over the proverbial coals.
Who's raking?
You raking. You be raking.
This is why people get the misapprehension that I'm snide when you say things like that.
Move your camera. Your camera went out of place. There you go.
That's because it turns out its ethnicity was wrong. My camera's really Chilean.
Wow, that's really something.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyhow.
What a loss, though. Poor Snooki. She's a mother now, you know.
Yes. Okay.
She's a mother.
I didn't know you're so interested in reality TV.
I'm not particularly, but I'm always interested in the reactions people give. I mean, can I be frank with you? Can I be open and honest?
Okay, go ahead.
If you are Armenian, guess which reality TV show family I would be talking about?
Kardashians.
Of course. See? It's very simple to understand. That's why I'm very happy that there are no French-Canadian reality TV.
I was going to say, I need to take a greater interest in French culture in general so I can find the dredges of you guys.
Well, see, that's very difficult.
Oh,
It's not that we don't. Yes. It's not that we don't have them. It's that you don't speak the language. You wouldn't be able to pick up on them. That's all. Oh, we have them all right. But if you think I'm going to reveal to them, you're nuts. What do I look like? Some sort of sap? That ain't happening, kid. Charles Coulombe didn't raise no moron. You think I'm going to give you a pestle to beat me with? You're nuts. That's not happening. We got all sorts of morons amongst the French Canadians. No way, on God's green earth, I'm going to tell you who they are. Ha! You must think I'm a moron. I'm not telling you nothing about them. No. Learn French. Find out for yourself.
Okay. All right.
See, we got what you call a linguistic Berlin Wall that keeps me safe, but on the other hand allows me to spew. See?
All right. Let's close.
I do have one.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
All right. It's Easter Monday. So what does that mean?
It means it's off the menu.
But in the light of the resurrection, the soul you save
may be your own.
God bless you all, and remember, even if no one else does, Jersey loves you.